Another video review log time. It's another double feature, this time focusing on science fiction. Now these two films I'm going to talk about share a lot in common. For starters, they were both released relatively late in 2019. One of them actually didn't really have an official release until a couple of months back when Amazon purchased the rights to distribute it and put it on Amazon Prime, which is where I found both of these films. Both delve into the realm of science fiction, but not overly, gratuitous or big spectacle science fiction, and they were both done for relatively low budgets. These are indie features that I feel are really up in the game in terms of what you can accomplish on such a small budget. So let me just start off and talk about the first one here that I saw, which was Cosmos. Now this is done by a brother writer-director duo where they spent, I'm trying to remember the story exactly right here. They spent about 5 years making this picture come to fruition. They originally had another science fiction idea they wanted to approach a studio with, but the studio, didn't want to take too many chances on a novice writing, directing duo. And so they said, go make a feature film to prove to us you have the chops to make a feature film, basically. Interesting. So this basically was the feature film they were challenged to make. They were essentially the crew. It was the director duo. I believe they said their mom came out to help out with continuity and makeup and things like that. The actors, there's only a handful of actors in this movie. There's about 3 main roles and then 1 supporting role. Each of those actors took on more responsibilities behind the camera as much as they did in front of the camera. Right out of the gate with that kind of, put on a show for the sake of putting on a show attitude, that kind of immediately won me over to this film. It follows this trio of amateur scientists as they are tracking down radio signals in space. They like to observe with their own telescope this satellite that one of them used to work on. Basically, they end up receiving a signal. Then they're the first ones to basically have first contact. And this is all done on such a shoestring budget. They're out in the woods. Their main set is the interior of a van. You're relying a lot on their performances and the atmosphere created in just this small little scope of the story in order to really sell you on this idea of these amateurs essentially being the ones who discover extraterrestrial life. It works. It's very effective in being able to kind of play up how melodramatic this really mundane setting can be. Aside from some moments here or there, the pacing I felt was perfectly satisfactory for this type of sci-fi exploration, wherein it's not going for big action spectacle. It's not going for the grandiose kind of traversing to other worlds or anything like that. It's very much rooted in the homegrown, grounded science of what probably actually goes on with people who research and look into extraterrestrial signals or look into, astronomy and so forth for their basically their passion project. There are times where it gets a little, like I said, it's melodramatic appropriately enough at times, and then there are moments where it's kind of like, okay, we're kind of perhaps reaching for a bit more of a grander sort of dramatic scene at certain points. Let's say, for example, they're in a rush to kind of recharge their laptop because it's about to lose a signal, and if they lose all that data, it's going to be wiped away forever. No one will believe they ever made first contact, essentially. There's this rush for them to pack all their stuff up and drive to the observation, headquarters and find a battery and stuff to plug in their laptop. But it's all done at this really frantic pace, and the music is like dun 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 dun. There are some points where it's kind of like, you can tone it down, dude. Also, I get it from the other perspective too, wherein if you dedicated your whole life to this kind of dream of making contact with other worlds or other, presences out in space, it can feel like that. It can feel like the whole world's caving in on you as you scrounge around to recharge your laptop. Absolutely. There was points initially I laughed at it, and I'm like, you know what? These are the stakes for the characters. They do make sense because these, like I said, these performances are solid enough and relatable enough that they endear these characters to you immediately. There's tension between these three lead roles in many different dynamics. One of them is very sore at the other two for very different reasons, because he believes one took his job and he believes the other one betrayed their friendship. And that dynamic works both ways with the other roles too, wherein one of the other characters, the guy who actually kind of establishes first contact, who's named Mike, he ends up kind of having sort of an inferiority complex, or is very insecure about his role in things, that he feels like everyone believes he's shooting for the stars and it will never achieve anything with himself, or that he's just going to end up burning himself in the end. And so he can take on a very defensive stance at times. He can take on a very timid stance at times, and it works in service of the story of these three guys just joining not just their combined intelligences, but also their combined passions for this shared interest in astronomy, in the search for extraterrestrial life. It doesn't have big spectacle up until the very end of the film, but that's fine, because I feel that is not really the main focus with Cosmos. You know kind of where it's going when the first strange occurrence takes place. You kind of can figure out the trajectory of the movie from there on out, but at no point is it going to take you into grandiose Close Encounters of the Third Kind type of spectacle. At no point does it go into the realm of, say, like Contact or anything like that. It's very much grounded in the perspective of the first people, on terra firma who make alien contact, who make first contact. And so I appreciate it for that. And also, like I said, there's a lot to be respected with just how much of no budget there was for this film. It looks pretty stunning. It's a visually very stunning film. Overall, it was a very enjoyable watch, and I did end up really relating to and caring about these characters. They might not be the most thoroughly fleshed out characters. A lot of their background is given through some exposition dialogue as they relay each other's stories to one another, while one of them takes a convenient walk away from the van. But still, I liked it. I thought it worked well for what it was. And after you hear sort of the behind the scenes stuff with regards to how this film got made, you can't help but feel a little bit of some optimism towards these filmmakers. Like, if this is the dedication and passion they put into a project that was supposed to be the stepping block into a bigger project, I'm really curious to see what they would do with a huge budget. I'm advocating for these guys to get a huge budget next time. I want to see these brothers completely unleashed in their creativity. The second film I want to talk about, this is the one that was purchased by Amazon in order for them to distribute on their streaming service exclusively, is called The Vast of Night. And I've been hearing a little bit of good buzz surrounding this movie for a while. I just never had the time to check it out, like I said, about a month or two ago, until this past week. And I gotta say, this is another example of, you know what? Part of me can kind of tell that this was done on a very low budget, but it is visually and narratively very impressive. It chronicles this one night in a New Mexico town in the 50s, wherein a young switchboard operator and a radio DJ are the ones to sort of receive, again, this strange, mysterious signal. And throughout the night, it's about them sort of uncovering the mystery behind this signal. What does it mean? They get like phone calls from people who are involved in past military projects. They end up making like a visit to this old lady who has sort of a very hair-raising tale and account of what she believes is going on in the town. Again, it's one of those films where it's not really depending on grand spectacle of the science fiction variety until like the last couple of minutes of the movie. But still, I found myself being thoroughly invested in it. The one critique I may have had of this film is that the framing device I didn't feel was all too necessary. It opens on a screen of an old black and white television, and that sets up, the title for The Vast of Night. And this plays like an episode in a Twilight Zone type of a television serial. I felt that wasn't needed. Like, you could have just gotten right into the story. I understand why they did it, because this narrative and the style it's being told in very much harken back to a lot of Rod Serling Twilight Zone. It has that ambience of kind of underscored dread throughout the film, even though nothing outright terrifying or unnerving is, apparent at the moment. The fact that it's shot like in almost complete darkness, aside from, a few overhead lights from the road and things like that, really kind of captures a very eerie and spooky mood to it. It has an otherworldly kind of quality about its visuals. There is a really impressive tracking shot in this movie. There's a lot of long takes throughout the film, and kudos to the actors for being able to carry on very lengthy kind of diatribes and back and forths with each other as they walk down the desolate, country road in the middle of the night to get to the station, and they're just having this conversation going back and forth, talking about radios at the time, talking about what it takes to get into the business of being a radio DJ or recording interviews. These two lead actors have a good rapport. This movie, like I said, is relying on them to be able to carry the scenes effectively, because there are just a huge amount of long takes and, like I said, impressive movement of the camera throughout really coordinated scenes and scenarios. I was talking about this one long tracking shot that starts from the door with the switchboard operator as she's smoking a cigarette, comes out of the doorway, down the main street, takes, I think, off to the left, down through a field, alongside a fence, all the way back to the high school gym where they started, where there's this game that is in progress, goes into the gym, focuses on the players a little bit, comes up into the stands with the crowd, out the back window, and then back again out the street until it crosses paths with the radio station where the DJ's out having his smoke. That's really impressive. I'm sure there's some CGI trickery involved at times in order for the edits to be fairly seamless and make it all look like one continuous shot, but it is just a thoroughly visually impressive moment, and that's what kind of blew my hair back a little bit when I read that this was made for I think about $700,000. To make this very effective, down-to-earth sci-fi mystery story and make it very thoroughly moody, atmospheric, and compelling on just that is something else. I recommend both movies. You should definitely check them out. They're both on Amazon Prime right now. I feel if you do like something along the lines of a slow burn science fiction story that isn't out to wow you with a lot of high concept like aliens or powers or traversing through the galaxies, or if you're looking for a little bit more down to earth science fiction that is more about characterization, that is more about just telling a compelling and unnerving narrative in the moment as opposed to reaching for far grander concepts, these two are perfectly suitable for that need. Go check out The Vast of Night, go check out Cosmos, and kind of be in awe in what filmmakers can accomplish with the smallest of budgets. I'll be back a little bit later, maybe with some guests, to talk about a film that I'm not sure what its budget was, but whoo boy, does it go places. I'll see ya.